to communicate with your fellow human beings in your daily life. And it's a struggle that's obviously this is a workaround for, so we'd like to get as many people involved in it and train them to be spelling practitioners and help the community. There's no end to the supply of non-speaking. Hi, all right, I'll start over. So, yeah, I mean, right now we're looking at autism rates of 1 in 25. Out of the people that are diagnosed with autism, roughly 40% are non-speaking. And the current paradigm that we're using is basically what they describe in the movie, low IQ assessment, which leads to life skills. And somewhere along that track of life skills and being underestimated and being spoken down to and treated without any dignity or respect, a lot of children become assertive and aggressive and violent and self-injurious. And all of these things can be remediated with spelling to communicate. If we revamp the system that we use now, it would cost us less money to educate children and adults more effectively and efficiently. But trying to find anybody to listen to that message is a real struggle. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's my pleasure to show this movie. I can't do enough to share this message with the world. These people need our help and they need our voices so that they can find theirs. I also want to thank the Civic Theater. What a beautiful place, and Stefan, I don't know, oh, there you are, for helping us out with everything tonight, and Gwen, who came to live stream. So I do need you to know that this event, the Q&A portion, will be live streamed, so if you don't want to be shared on the internet, I guess you can write your question on an index card and I can read it out for you. I can have Janelle and my husband maybe pass out cards if anyone's interested. Also, thank you, Vincent, and thank you, honey. We met, I guess, 9 years ago, and I think that everything about how I perceived autism would be radically different if I hadn't found Honey's group. And I hadn't listened to some of the things that she said. Same with Norma. Norma taught me all about the other, Young Living and how you can use oils to help change moods and alleviate stress. And Janelle, who's taught me so much about foods and what foods can be triggers for these children and how to help them, even do some massage techniques on them to help them relax different muscles. And Nyla, my dear friend, who is on this journey as well with us, with her child. So we hope that in the next 5 years in Allentown, we might have our own group of spellers doing what these pioneers here have already done. Last but not least, we also have Derek joining us. I think he might field some questions as well during the Q&A segment. And Derek is, I actually need some info. Derek is a local speller who was spelling before the speller's method was around. So he took RPM, I guess, trainings with Soma. She's featured in the movie. And so just to show you this method of teaching children with this disability and other disabilities has been around, and there's no reason for us to not embrace it and push for it to be included in the schools, to Madison's point, because that's where we're going to make the most impact, and that's where we'll be able to help save as many of these 30 to 50 million non-speakers that are trapped in silent cages. So, are we setting up? Okay, do you guys want to come on Oh, yeah, sure, honey. What the heck? Does anybody have any questions? Do we need index cards? Honey, can you get that? All right, you know. There should be index cards and pens right there. Yeah, if you want to pass them out. If anybody wants to write down a question. And if you'd like to deliver your own question, just come on over here and we can kind of get some people set up. That's it right here. This is good right here. So Derek lives locally, went to Parkland, I believe, right? Yeah. A couple of Parkland moms here. I know. That's hopefully a big. Okay. All right. So, am I asking the first question? I guess so.
Did it work? Yes.
Okay, so Vincent and Derek, now that Spellers has been seen around the world, this is my personal question. How can we help? What can we do to help drive the message of spelling to communicate and competence, presuming competence in non-speakers?
Tell everyone. Tell everyone about the film.
Did you all hear that? Tell everyone about the film. Thank you. And the film is available online. You can see it on the Kinema website. You can download it and watch it again in your home, or you can share it with friends. We do also have CME credits available in the lobby for any professionals that want to get accredited hours for their certification. This movie and this program can facilitate that for them. Okay. Did anybody else have a question from the audience? Okay. Do you want to come on down?
Good evening. My name is Stafford. I saw an advertisement for the movie and that there would be a Q&A afterwards. So I purposely gave up my Allentown Symphony Jazz Cabaret to get here because I knew I was going to learn something. As a guy who grew up and was very interested in the space age, yesterday was 54 years that we walked on the moon. I look at you parents that are here with your children, the efforts put into this movie, and you spellers are the same explorers as those astronauts from 54 years ago. So just keep pushing yourselves forward and make a better world for yourselves and for everybody else who will come after you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
What an interesting movie. And what I want to know is, as spellers become, as all of you who are spellers become more adapted to the different ways they use the spellers. Can you transition into like texting or using your phone?
Yes, I text daily.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I text daily.
Yes.
So I'll answer that. Vincent just said, yes, I text daily. So I do want to just make one quick comment. So Vincent did RPM when he was 8 years old. And he was exposed to it. And when Jamie says in there that, when JB says, we thought that, when I called him, it was not that I didn't know Vincent had language. What I couldn't untap was absolute full communication. So Soma had taught me that my kid was in there and had showed me that he was capable, but I thought that she was this incredible woman that had this magic power to pull him out and nobody else could. So that's where for me personally with Vince, like S2C gave us like a modality to follow that I could then take home, implement, and access full communication. So yes, Vincent, he does text daily. He stays in touch with his family and his sister and his dad when he's out of town. So it's critical. I think the biggest part is not just, I think people miss with like speech. By terms of mainstream, my son was successful at speech therapy, augmentative communication, picture exchange communication. He used every device known to mankind. He had a Dynabox Maestro, which is like a $10,000 device from the district, perfected every one. He was actually the subject matter for a collaboration at ASHA for a 2-hour lecture with Dick Litton, speech pathologist, on successful communication. But the problem was none of it was true communication. It was the ability to say, like, I want juice, or I want a cookie, or I would give him an option and he would choose one of the two. But he never, like, he walked in the door and typed, "It's freaking cold outside." Like, that's communication. Like, I have a typical child and I want him talking like a typical child, and that's what we have finally, by the grace of God, achieved. So I cried through that entire movie because I'm just so happy that it's happening to so many others. Thank you. Yeah, and me too. Every time I see it, I think I cry. I think it's hard for other people to understand, maybe, if you're not an autism parent. So, like, one dumb thing is, we've always kind of anecdotally observed that my son really eats dinner well when it's chicken, but there was never the communication to say, like, hey, I want chicken for dinner. We just always assumed that chicken was a big hit. And when he was asked, what's your favorite food, he spelled chicken. And just to have that confirmation is really empowering. And just the few sentences that you can get, and all the moms that have seen this know the feeling. It's just, you finally get a chance to know your child and what they really think. So one other question I had from somebody before was, how many people did Vince work with in the first stages, so kind of to this point? And what were the specific things they did to get the spelling to communicate, to come out?
How many people did he work with, like, as far as communication partners?
Yeah. And like, can you go into a little bit about, like, I don't know, Nyla, do you want to? How many people did he work with in the first stages? And like, what the early process of it was like?
You can share.
So Vince and I are a really good team, and a lot of times he's answered these questions a million times, and so he just said you can share. So I'll just share just to be quicker because it's later.
But Vincent initially started seeing a practitioner, and we went to them once a week, and then once I saw the growth, I ended up going twice a week. And then I think the key to success with this modality is implementing nightly sessions with the family. And we did it by way of lessons. So that was the tool that I didn't get with VRPM. I needed something tangible for me to follow through with. I'm really good at doing whatever somebody tells me for my kid. If you tell me to run 100 miles, I'll run 101. But I needed something to focus on. So there's a methodology for the Spelling to Communicate program. So you start with like reading a paragraph, and then you just ask them to answer a question within the paragraph that's in the paragraph. And so it's called a known. And that's what he was referring to when he said urban, when he said carnivore. And then you go to a semi-open, and you throw in, once you get really good with like a good flow and no mistakes, then you go to a semi-open. And then you work your way up, and then what happens over time, you're just having open conversations. And it's absolutely critical that each person kind of start with those, because Vincent started doing those lessons, and then I taught one of my aides, and he actually asked for my aide to bring him to his lessons because he didn't want to be with mom anymore. He wanted to be with a peer because she was closer to his age, and he asked her to take him, and so she started doing it every day, and so the two of them, they got fluent before I did because she was so invested, and he was really comfortable with her, and he put more pressure. He actually has a blog. It's called The Unfiltered Mind of Vincent. And he shared in the blog, like, it was very hard for him to communicate with his family because he would put so much pressure on himself. And so, so he started with, so to answer the question, he started with one, which was just his practitioner, and I was doing the nightly sessions, and then he also did it with his aide, so it was 3. And now he talks to about, there's like 9 of us. Anybody that walks in my house, I get him trained. So he needs to have everybody in my house know how to communicate with him.
That's great. I didn't realize that he had taken to the other methodologies. So one of the struggles personally for us was that none of those are working. Text, not really working. Touch chat, not really working. Lamp working even less. Back to touch chat, still not really working. Again, and the communication that he does get from that is just something that he's been forced to motor plan so that it's a goal that can be checked off the list. So what happens is when the device is put in front of him, he just says, want veggie straws. And he doesn't want veggie straws, because if you put veggie straws in front of him, that's not what he wants. That's not what he wants to say. But someone has spent hours and hours and hours trying to teach him to say, want veggie straws, so that they can check that box on the report and say he's functional with that. They did something this year. He can say, want veggie straws. But the functionality of that communication is not there. It's an automatic response that he's just like, I want juice. And it's not the communication needs that they have. So, I mean, again, to the point of like, I know it's from a mom's point of view, it's hard to understand how the reading part came. I know, honey, you always told me to read to him. Jill, you always told me read, just read, read, read. So the language acquisition is just something that they have. They're no output. I think that's important to understand. So another question from the floor was, what device could I use to order food in a restaurant?
he said you can type on an iPad. Elizabeth Buckers, who was in the movie The Valedictorian, is a good friend of Vincent's, and so she has she prefers in the movie to use like a keyboard on a stand, so does Vincent. But for quick answers at a restaurant, we do, like, you could use touch chat. We use Perlico to text, but you can also do, she uses something called iMean. It's $4.99, and it's an app. And that was what she was typing on at the end on the iPad. So for quick things like that, we usually just use that.
Great. Yeah. Can you come on down? Because I don't know.
I just want to know, since Vincent's learned to spell, how does that make him feel inside? Like, is he calmer? Is he, I just wondered that.
I feel more regulated for sure.
Great. Thank you.
So more in control? More in control.
Yes.
So we saw like a decrease in like anxiety and stress and behaviors. Vincent's a little stressed right now, so he's even a little more anxious than normal because his sister just left for Pittsburgh as we were heading here. So he was just a little more uneasy, but it is definitely from his mother's perspective. Vincent liked ABA for the reason that it was like wrote in the sameness and it was organized and it would always calm him. It would be like somebody, to us, it was like somebody, I would equate it to like knitting or like crocheting. Like it was just the sameness, it was repetitive, and he knew the people had good intentions, so he was okay with that. But, so he would be calm when he was doing something, but he didn't know what to do with his body a lot of times, and he would just dart places and run places, and sometimes just scream for no reason, and get up and try and leave, and we don't have any of that anymore. I mean, we have none of it. I mean, yeah, so this is the result of ABA, because when he was, he's an identical twin, and when they were two, they started an ABA program, and I would not let them use food as a tangible object. I told them that they had to do touch, because he's going to be 23, and back in the day, they said autistics weren't physically affectionate, and I'm like, well, that's never going to be my kids. So this is probably half a result of being Italian and half a result of being an ABA kid.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. Keep going.
Thank you.
Vince, I just want to say I just think you're outstanding and so inspirational, and my son Timothy is having a hard time, but he is flying to Tampa next month to meet Dana. Yeah, so what advice would you have for him, since he hasn't flown in 15 years and does sometimes struggle to keep his body in control? There are two of us traveling with him. So any advice? and he's had about 7 weeks of lessons, and he's already able to tell us that it's calming sitting in the TV room is calming. And there are he designed his own race car this week at his lesson. So, yeah, I would really love some advice for Timothy. And I'd love for you guys to be buddies, to be bros someday. So.
In the Spellerverse. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, Derek. Thank you for coming out. Yeah, thank you for being a trendsetter here in the Valley. Sorry, Vincent, back to the question.
I think snacks help in a movie.
Snacks
He
in a
does.
movie.
I download movies before I go, and I actually have a connector, so he and I watch the same movie.
Nice.
So I put in headphones in my ears and in his ears, and we kind of watch and we talk about it. But we also do, I give him snacks constantly to kind of distract.
And good sensory stuff going, sensory input, right? Well, good luck. Oh, that's so exciting.
Also,
Yeah, really great. Oh yeah, one more. Come on down.
Are the spellers and the parents on a national or regional tour promoting the movie?
Yeah.
I mean,
This.
we've been, right now, it's in the film festival realm.
Yeah.
So we've still been going to like film festivals. Like we were just up in Connecticut like a couple weeks ago at a film festival. So once it's in the realm, it's still being shown. So it's kind of like a world tour. Like he's been to Texas. He just got invited to Alabama in 2 weeks. And yeah, so they're floating.
I think you should collaborate with one another and take yourselves before a congressional committee to open up the eyes of Congress.
So that is already happening. So Elizabeth,
I want an update on this.
yeah.
So Vincent, Caden, and Elizabeth are all on Facebook, and they're pretty public about what they do. Cade and Elizabeth, Vincent was supposed to go too, but we had another commitment, but they just went and lobbied at Congress to educate them on the power of this modality and that they need to presume intellect and that we need to shift the paradigm, and it's something that they're pretty passionate about. So, I mean, it's been awesome. They went yesterday. I think they went like, it was either yesterday or last week, but you can go to Cade Larson's Facebook page. They just posted a ton of pictures of it. Cade, C-A-D-E. He's the child that's in the movie that the mom was like, why did it take my friend to come? He could have done this since he was 5. Can I just share a little tidbit about Cade? Vince, do you want me to tell him about Cade and what happened? So this is an incredible story. Just real quickly, I'll tell you guys how important it is to be able to fully communicate, not just push, I want juice, or I want veggie straws, the actual communication. Cade got diagnosed with cancer shortly after the filming of that. And he was in a very advanced cancer. And he says, and he says this to everybody he meets, if he was not able to fully communicate, he likely would not be here. I mean, there was at one point when they were going through his treatments, he kept telling them that his chest felt weird, his throat felt weird. So they kept giving him something called Zofran, which is typically for vomiting or nausea. Zofran, Zofran, Zofran. And he finally grabbed his device and said, "I'm not nauseous, there's something wrong." And they took him and they did a X-ray or an MRI, and he had a tumor in his esophagus. I mean, there were so many things that guided him, and they have given me permission to share his story, because had a year prior he not learned this, they shudder to think that he literally might not have been here.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions earlier from a healthcare professional. And they were saying, how has this changed? Like, since you've had the ability to spell to communicate, how has that helped you physically with, like, reporting any ailments or health needs?
I am now involved in my health.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, that's alone is so empowering. So, thank you, everyone. I don't know if there's any other questions. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to hearing more from you. I do have some resources on the way out. There's a resource sheet of other things that you can watch online, links. Oh, yeah. Thank you. So we have some links. There's a sample lesson. We have some sample stencils out there that, just to see some of the tools. So I do also think that's important to cover. So Vincent and Jameson and Elizabeth are independent typers. But this modality isn't only for independent typers. The professionals and the scientists really like the independent typers because they can see it's, solely created, I suppose. But there's a lot of merit to just the 3 stencil boards or the 1 open board. One of the things that they say is 26 letters gives them the world. There's an infinite possibility of expression with just the 26 letters in the alphabet, and that's all they need. So please help yourself. There's CME credits available for any professionals. There's flyers about it out there. And there's also, there was a generation of spellers prior. Derek being one of them. There was another one. There's a memorial thing up there for Nick Demora. Nick Demora is from Crimson Rise, and there's some information about them out there as well. So it's been around a while. It's more than time. I remember when I met you, a little while after that, I was involved in Autism Speaks. I was the local chair. And the message at that point, because the ASAN was involved, and the message was, it's time to listen. And that was in what year?
Like 50.
Yeah, maybe 2014 or 15, and we're still here, we're still waiting for people to listen. So I hope that you have learned something tonight and can share this with friends and family, and especially if you know anybody who's on the spectrum who struggles with communication. Please reach out, get involved in the Facebook group, Spellers Freedom, Spellers University, and let's make sure all these people have a true, authentic voice moving forward. So, thank you.